And we're live. Hello, everybody. We are here with another Saturday night live stream. This week is going to be really good. I know you can already see that we have a guest. We have Mark, one of our moderators, who is here for this is you're our first guest, aren't you? I think
Is that
so,
right,
right?
Mark? Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Congratulations.
What
Yeah.
an honor. What an interesting privilege.
It's an honor for us, and we're thrilled that you're here for this discussion, which we will get into in a minute. I see that Jewel, who is modding for us tonight, is out there. And sorry, I'm always playing with all of the
Hi,
different screens.
everybody in the chat feed. I see it rolling back there on my tablet, but I'm going to
Yeah,
be a little bit less typey today.
well, yeah, you're on the other side now.
That's
So,
right.
um,
I've
so
crossed the rainbow bridge.
what we do is I try not to be distracted by the chat. Everybody knows that I do get very distracted, but we try to just focus on our conversation, and then we check in on what's going on in the chat every so often. And I think we're going to go in now and just say hi to everybody. So I can see Hope and Lisa and Laura and hi Cassidy. Yeah, distractions. Yeah, I'm the worst with that. Hi Ren. Oron, it's so good to see you. I think I was just saying we hadn't seen you in a while. Um,
Yeah.
it's really good to see you. I know Morg is in here because I saw him say hello. And Steven, is Tyler in here? Hi, Tyler. And who else is in here? Um, oh,
There's Laura.
Perry. I have to turn off my phone. Claudia and Perry, and I think I have scrolled up as far as I can go. Thank you for holding down the fort. Hi, Samantha. Uh, thanks for holding down the fort, Jewel. And I think hi, Velvet. Hi, Melinda. I think we should get right on it because I know you guys have a lot of notes written down. Hi, Ven. um, and we only have an hour, so we are very packed. What we're talking about tonight is I was going to do a little recap, but I know you guys already know, if you're watching the news, what's happening in Iran. Jan has done 2 live streams already, right? Was it 2?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it was actually in, I think, your first live stream on this topic that, and I believe it was MC Heavyset, who I haven't seen in here tonight, but hopefully she comes in, um, mentioned what a good topic it was and wanting to really discuss extreme religion, uh, government intervention, like how that impacts, with families. Um, and I wrote to Mark at that time during your live stream and said, "Hey, we wanted to have you on for a live stream. Is this something that you'd be interested in?" And Mark said yes. So we're very, very happy to be having this discussion. We met on Wednesday. We talked about a lot of different aspects of people are bringing in different points. So I think we're going to get right to it. One of the things I just want to say right off the bat before I hand it over to you guys, um, is that when talking about religion, we are not talking about people. We're talking about the religion, the ideology. Always keep that in mind. And the Hyperion view on religion, which I think we'll get a little bit more into, um, probably around the end. If we have time, we'll get into it more. I just want to say really quickly that um, we always place logic and reason above everything else. So what we want everybody to know the truth of reality, the mechanism for reality, and once you have that, and you also immediately understand how dangerous indoctrination is, and you have those two things, then you can add in an element of some sort of personal religion or spirituality, whatever appeals to you. we have a lot of, I know I've said this before, a lot of pagans, Wiccans, people who come in and say, can I be Wiccan and also Hyperion? And yes, you can, as long as you understand the material, as long as you understand that you're putting logic and reason first. You can use all sorts of other, systems that you specifically like. And I always give the example of my husband, who's a great admirer of the Greek goddess Athena. He really, really likes her attributes, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you know how reality operates. So, with that said, hello, Hyperion frequency. With that said, I think we're going to just move right on. I know that one of the main points, of course, here is religious extremism. And, that's caused a lot of the issues in Iran. And I know, Jan, that you had some points about this. So do you want to?
Well, you mentioned having sort of a personal mythos. Yes, I would like to see in the future the religion become more of a recreational thing rather than something that governs people. As you can see in America today, a lot of religious ideals are being used to govern people. Like in the overturning of Roe versus Wade is religiously motivated. And then of course, there's the limiting of trans care, or even going as far as to eliminate trans care. So I feel like there's sort of an intertwining of religion and politics that's obviously already prominent in Iran, but is becoming more so here in the US. It's almost like people are treating like God and country synonymously. So
Yeah, that's I don't know how, I don't think it's a huge proportion. Certainly they're very loud, but that Christian nationalism is very frightening, that you hadn't heard come out recently, until recently, you hadn't heard it be spoken about that sort of boldly. So I'm not sure if you wanted to, keep going with that, or should we move on to?
Oh no, yeah, sorry, I didn't really have a essay prepared on that part. But yeah, if anybody wants to conversate on that, please.
Well, I think it's a really important thing to look at religious extremism, because not only is there religious extremism in America, but we're seeing a lot of parallels between Iran and America, but also kind of an opposite effect with those parallels, kind of some differentiated aspects to that. So whereas we're seeing the people in Iran that are kind of wanting to free themselves from the shackles of religious extremism, we're seeing the opposite of that in the United States, where people are kind of openly embracing that. And Jan mentioned that quite a bit. And so with Iran, if we're focusing on that, these current protests that we're seeing in the news that are going on right now, that's kind of a cultural fight, because the people of Iran, they're wanting to fight for their freedom and equality and sovereignty and independence. That's something that they haven't had for a long time. And so even though there was a trigger event of Masa Amini's unfortunate murder, you can see that men are also protesting. And so it's kind of a really good example of the people of Iran unifying for a common goal. And so a lot of these current protests, if you're not really familiar with what's going on, they are aiming for political and cultural and societal reform. And so they want all of those things. They want to break free from decades of traditional values and religious conditioning that they've had to live with for, like I said, decades. It's been going on in Iran for a very long time. But if you look at the flip side of that coin, if you look at what's going on right now in the United States, we see a open embracing of religious extremism. And I know Jan has had I think, quite a few, 2 or 3, maybe 4 live streams about religious extremism with different politicians. They've given lots of great examples of what we're seeing currently. On Wednesdays, Jan goes live and does Worldview Wednesday, and we see a lot of these topics. And so a common theme right now in right-wing politics, especially with the MAGA stuff, make America great, like what Jan was saying, they're wanting to make America great for God, or take their country back for God, or make it godly. So we're seeing an opposite effect of what's going on in Iran, because the people of Iran, they want to break free from that. And so I know Jan has mentioned before politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene, just these really horrible people that openly declare themselves as Christian nationalists, and they seek to blur that line between church and state, and they want to make it singular, that they make it part of their identity, which is exactly what Jan was saying just a little bit ago. And so a lot of those really extreme politicians, the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, those MAGA people that are very much on the right end of the scale, they want to fight for legislation and want to pass that legislation which reflects their internalized faith. So the legislation that they're putting forward, it reflects their beliefs, and they want to impose that faith on others in a restrictive way. And I know Jan mentioned the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the restrictions on LGBTQ. All of those things are absolutely horrible, and they're trying to restrict the rights of people based on their faith. And whereas we had seen that previously in Iran, which has sparked these protests, we are seeing that kind of as a growing trend in the United States. And I did want to mention something that Jewel said to us as a group when we had our meeting a couple days ago. Jewel said that Abrahamic faiths are absolutely no different than these other extremist religions that we see in the world. And I know Susan said at the beginning, we are against the ideology and not the people. But also, you shouldn't demonize or put other people down, or kind of others. That's kind of a weird way of saying it. You don't want to put people in this group of other because of something destructive that's somewhat different than what we have. But we also have that here. We have Abrahamic faith here as well. It may be a little different and stylized different because of our culture, but we shouldn't demonize people such as in Iran or the Middle East because of their culture. And so that's kind of something important that needs brought up. And you do see that sort of othering of foreign religions and cultures quite a bit, and other nationalities. You see that a lot in the United States, especially with the mindset of America first, or Americans versus everybody else. And so you see that with the America First movement. These Christian nationalists, they're demonizing immigrants who come to America. And so they say a lot of things. Everybody knows the phrase build the wall. Everybody knows that people from South America have been demonized as thugs and murderers, and that's just absolutely not true. While it may be true that maybe a minuscule percentage of people that come northwards to the United States may have some kind of criminality, you can't demonize an entire group of people just because I think I froze a little bit.
You froze, but we can still hear you.
Oh, okay. So
There, you're
basically
back.
what it comes down to is I just wanted to reiterate something that Jewel had said and what Susan said in the beginning, that we are not against people, we are against these false ideologies, which can be really destructive to people. And it's even though the trigger event was really horrible in Iran, it's really great that the people of Iran are unifying and fighting to be free of those shackles of religious extremism.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that actually Jill had brought up in our meeting about being careful not to other the accept that, oh well, Christianity is something we're familiar with, so that's okay, but Islam is not. And it's really kind of ironic when Christians who want to have all the limiting put in say, oh, Islam is terrible because of all these things that they do, but don't recognize that they're doing the same things. So I think that's a really important point. So thank you, Joel, for that.
Yeah, for sure. And they also don't want to acknowledge and look at the things that are in their own holy book, the Bible. You know, there is an awful lot of horrible stuff in the Bible, but yet we demonize these other cultures for things that we see across the world that we, for whatever reason, don't relate to.
Yeah, and it's that that's something that happens. Well, we talked about this on Wednesday, how North America is so big, the United States is so big, that there are a lot of people who think it's the entire world. They think that America is the one thing that matters, the culture matters, well, their culture that they like matters. And the rest of the world is kind of just, they don't really count. They're just going on. They're not quite living up to the way they look at Americans. And it's very disturbing when people who are outside the country comment on that, and you can hear that disdain that they have for the ignorance with a lot of Americans. And it's very disheartening for them to think that we're all like that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if this. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, also, I think something common with a lot of people who are religious, it seems like they're so satisfied with their belief system that they are content with not understanding the world. And so I think they're just completely not interested with having an open viewpoint of anything other than what they believe.
I think there's also fear. There's fear that they might encounter something that makes them question their own. People who believe based on fear, based on wanting to believe it because of comfort. Some part of them knows that they're on shaky ground logically, and they just don't want anything to get in that will shake that. And I think that that's part of the reason that they just shut off when it comes to hearing about other countries. I mean, to the point where they just mush everybody together. They don't even know the difference between people from different countries. Often and I'm obviously not talking about everybody in the States, but there are a lot of people who are just running on ignorance, and that's very disturbing. And I think it's because one of the reasons is because it's such a huge country. In Europe, you have much more accessibility to other countries. They're just right there. And here it's like, no, very insulated, and they're just not interested in anything outside because we're the best, you know. I'm going to move on to you, Mark, because I know that you have things and we have to watch the time. But I wanted to say something. Now is maybe a good time to do it, because you're talking about the shift in Iran moving this way, and the extremist religion in the U.S. going in the other direction. But both populations of both countries are actually decreasing in religion all around. And I know that I found a really good study about Iran. And although the census claims that 99.5% of the population are Muslim, and the author of this study said it's a figure that hides the state's active hostility toward irreligiosity, conversion, and unrecognized religious minorities. And there's definitely a fear in speaking out against the state. So I think it's hard to get accurate numbers, but a study that and I'll put the link in. It's well worth reading this entire article. But I'll put I may have already done it. I was putting a bunch of links in the description, and I'll make sure this one is in there for you guys. But I liked how this study, which is about with 40,000 Iranians, I liked how they talked about making it like safe for the people to be honest, because that's something you look for in a study. You want to make sure that accurate, that it's really portraying the truth. And this study is so interesting compared to what Iran's census figure says, which is almost 100% Muslim. Only 40% in this study actually identified as Muslim, and that was 32% as Shiite, and the rest of that small amount as other, Sunni and other kinds of Muslim. But what was really mind-blowing is that 22% of the population identified as none, which is just so starkly different from what the country is reporting. And for people who, like, I wasn't aware of that. That was new to me, and I think there's a lot of people who would be surprised by that. And I thought that was really indicative of what's going on. Also, I think it's important to point out that the protests that are going on now, and I really hope that they do have an effect. I hope that because this is another thing that was in the study, by the way, the majority of people don't think that women should have their own say, should decide whether or not they want to be veiled, and that's a really important point. When the majority of people think that each person should decide for themselves, you would hope that's the way it would go. I didn't get a very good sense that would happen, unfortunately, at least not very soon. However, the protests are showing that people are definitely fed up, as Jan was saying, and it's kind of like that was the last straw. But another important point, I think, is that this current government is very conservative. So I think part of the backlash is not necessarily wholly against wearing the veil. I think that, like the previous government had been they were more moderate, and I think that it was just because this particular current government came in as very strict, tightened the rules, and put the morality police out there. I mean, they've already been out there for a long time, but put them out there to really police it. And I think all of those factors together are important to know. So, and I have this figure because it was really good. That's the 20%. I don't know if it was in this study, but again, I'll make sure that these links are in there for you guys, because it's well worth taking the time. They include a lot of other information that we don't have time to go into, but that's very interesting to see how the population is changing from having been very religious to not being very religious. But here it is. Here's the percentage on the 72% of people think that the hijab should not be mandatory in public, and only 15% actually agreed that it should be. So that's big difference in numbers. I think, what time is it? Should we go into comments before you start getting a chance to do what you're talking about, Mark? Because I see some other people came in. So do we want to say hello? Yes, we do, to everybody who came in, and thank you very much. And I think Claudia said, who has been a member for 2 months, hello me, and everyone, thank you, and thank you back. We love seeing those. Thank you to all of our members, by the way. It's so lovely to see the channel members, and thank you, Morg, for the super chat.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, Roberta. I'm not sure who else has come in. I did see a bunch of people. And while I was talking, Lisa Grace came in, Katrina. Thank you so much. We hope that you're enjoying this conversation. Deborah, hello. It's good to see you as well. Hi, Zero.
There was one comment by Laura that I wanted to comment on. And hi, Laura, nice to see you. Laura said, can you imagine the men in any country if they were suddenly made to cover themselves, even just their faces? And I think that's kind of an important point, because a lot of these religions, they seem kind of intertwined with patriarchal aspects, both in Iran and the United States. Whereas in Iran, you know, it's mostly the oppression of women. You know, of course, men are oppressed too, but more significantly, women with the hijab and having to wear the hijab in public. And in the United States, the trend with extreme religions is that women are lesser than men. That's what the Bible says. And so you do see a lot of these patriarchal aspects in the religions that definitely are damaging to people. So really good comment, Laura, and nice to see you.
And yeah, and remember that, you know, before this current regime, the women, I mean, I know that there's been lots and lots of photos being passed around saying, look what the women were looking like and how they were dressed in the late 70s. I mean, they were wearing miniskirts and they into fashion, and you know, well, they are still educated, but it was a very, very different feel. And I think that, you know, we're seeing that the majority of those people would like to be able to get back to that, or at least decide for yourself what you want to do. Yeah.
Have that freedom of expression.
Yeah. And I mean, I have seen on social media accounts where it's the Muslim woman chooses to dress the way they dress, and they get a lot of comments from people saying, you know, take off your hijab, and you know, your husband is making you wear it, and then you can hear the husband in the background yelling, take it off, take it off. It's not the husband, you know, it's that's the way it should be. I mean, it should be what you want. It's a little bit, that's a conversation for another time, because I still think that if you're indoctrinated into a religion that where you believe that your God wants you to be modest, even though your husband is not insisting on it and nobody in your family is insisting on it, but you think that that's true, then you're still basing what you're deciding on a false foundation. But that's a discussion for another time. Okay, Mark, hello there. You have been super patient, and I know that you have a lot of points that you'd like to make. So,
well, there are so many points there that are just terrific springboards to related ideas. I think one thing that's really interesting and distressing is the trend line of authoritarian governments globally. And only in particular cases is there a strong religious element, a theocracy, as in Iran. In other cases, you have, you know, fascism becoming really popular in Italy again, where it was kind of invented under Mussolini once upon a time. And I think Susan, Philip, maybe everybody here has already made some terrific points about not projecting whatever that is that draws people like moths to a flame to authoritarianism, not projecting that as the problem of those people over there in that part of the world, because, you know, it's exotic if it's there and it's just us if it's here. Mm-hmm. You would think that for some American citizens to recognize extreme right-wing authoritarianism that deserves to be called fascism, the leader, the father figure at the top of it, would have to have a carefully cropped mustache. Like Trump would have to have a carefully cropped little mustache and literally a swastika to be recognized as a right-wing authoritarian. And there's just a failure of cognitive capacity and higher reasoning and collective imagination, that it takes a certain historical symbolic set for people to understand what is and isn't authoritarianism, and what is it about authoritarianism, whether secular or religious, that draws people into that something that takes their autonomy away. And I've made a little list that is a surprise for everybody here. And some of it might sound rambling and crazy. And you get to see the fresh expressions on everybody's face because it's unrehearsed and it's outside of our collective outline. But I made some notes about why I think that some people choose authoritarianism, however much it's consciously and however much it's tacit and just part of a quiet part of their culture. But here's some reasons, I think. Number one, it disambiguates and it simplifies life choices. An example there would be declining to marry outside your religious faith community for conveniences like no arguments about where to have the ceremony and who sits on which side of the room and where will we plan the funerals and other occasions. It simplifies things to have a structure that's just been there. And that's where authoritarianism ties in with tradition. Number two, I think it provides cognitive shortcuts and it relieves a certain amount of mental strain. For instance, just having a set belief about the meaning of suffering or what happens when we die. That's been a topic for us lately.
Sure.
Having a relatively unexamined belief about something like that is easier for a whole lot of people than the work of practicing philosophy, which a lot of the people who are down on philosophy and make bad one-liner jokes about it are freaking terrified of it. They don't think they have the capacity for it because they've never tried. And it is a practice, right? Number three, ideology in the place of applied critical thinking skills is attractive because it's lazy. It's the junk food of mental content, right? Number four, or authoritarianism helps to ensure your belonging within a group where you feel safe. There's the family, and around the family, there's the tribe. And once upon a time, if you were too weird for the tribe, you were going to die. You were going to be ostracized. Yeah. You were going to be left with the old in the winter while the young and able people migrated because you were that much too strange. So I think we have instinctual and emotional reasons for choosing authoritarianism as a safety thing. It helps that sense of belonging where people are kind of guaranteed to share the same values, even if some of those values turn out to be atrocious and oppressive when you really dig down and look at it. It's that group belonging thing. And number five, I think having delineated your friends group and your enemies group, right, based on completely conventional category assumptions is also a feeling of safety. And I think it's attractive. Number six, it's an attractive idea that you are devoted to the right authoritarianism, right? You're devoted to the right ideas. And the rest of the world just needs to catch on because, again, that saves you a load of cognitive work examining whether your ideas are actually any good or not, whether any of them would survive in a public forum. And number eight, here we go. I think this is my final point that I really want you guys to chew on. People choose authoritarianism because democracies are flawed, fragile, and frustrating. The pluralistic or open society is flawed, fragile, and frustrating. Too many things can feel like an obscene compromise at the level of public decision-making where it ultimately fails all of the stakeholders, all of the voters, all of the people. Nobody gets what they want when you're really in a vigorous, active democracy in an open society. And yet most historical examples to bring sharp and expeditious correction to the noteworthy flaws of democracy have been abject nightmares. Dying under Stalin isn't really made more palatable than dying under Mussolini, just because Stalinist totalitarianism aligns left. So what if you're dead? You're a dead fascist under Mussolini, you're also dead. The problems for the person who's caught in the grind wheels, the problem for the little guy, the little gal, in attempted massive or forced cultural changes is that suffering is real, dead is dead, right? Family and loved ones and friends and our children matter more to us in the flesh and in this moment than systems ever will. And so on. You get that the human urge for something less flawed, fragile, and frustrating than democracy, less frustrating than the open society and all of its compromises, remains potent and compelling within us. And yet the countervailing forces are equally valid and strange and real.
Wow.
Yeah,
was
I like
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
Lots of great points.
really good points. Thank you so much for that. And I think you had a lot of people agreeing with you in the comments. That was really well said. Um, Joanna said, I do prefer the Hyperion style of living, autonomous style.
Oh, yeah.
What did Ren said? That sounds like my parents just married. Oh, yeah. People just choosing, finding somebody with because it's easy. It's easier. Go. I loved your last point, but go back and read the one before that, the seventh one again.
Number 7 again. Let's see. Authoritarianism, because it reduces complex life decisions, like which religion to expose your children to, or where to hold a funeral, or getting away from the religious.
One?
No, that was the second one.
I might have missed a piece of number 7, because I went to the secular and the religious here. It could also be who to vote for, or which political party you generally promote in favor, to the easiest possible range of decision-making apparatuses, like it's family tradition, we've always been Republican, or
yeah, I was gonna say it's the tradition. It's like, this has already been done, we've already done this is how my life was happy growing up, and now we're gonna have you do that too, and that's a guaranteed happiness for you as well. So that, why, if somebody is truly getting that happiness and completely unaware of what's going on in the rest of the world and how it's not working out for everybody else, then they're not going to get a sense that it's should be changed. So that would naturally feel like a threat if somebody came in and tried to change that tradition.
That's right. And it's bigger than just your family, right? It's the whole tribe. It's everybody who identifies on your side of a culture war. It's everybody who talks on the preferred media platforms that you watch that are siloed from a certain amount of facts. And it's reducing politics that have a real impact on everybody's lives to the simple emotional enthusiasms of sporting events.
I also saw the,
No.
I was just going to say, I saw Velvet Tears made a great comment that kind of went back to one of your points, Mark. Velvet Tears said, some people just want to be led so they don't have to think for themselves and make tough decisions. And I think that's a really good point. And it goes back to kind of what you were saying with almost like the laziness factor of it, and kind of what I was saying about how people are so stuck within their paradigm that they're content with not looking outside of those boundaries. But I thought you had really great points, Mark. All of those were wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The one I was looking for specifically, and I thought it was in the one that was right before the last one, was I just got distracted because Scorpio came in. Hi, Scorpio.
An idea that you're devoted to being the right authoritarianism.
No, it was the bit somewhere in there about accepting parts that you don't like just because you want to stay within the whole. That you want to. There's that was in there. That was in there somewhere. I'm pretty sure.
The tribalism aspect of it.
Yeah, it's like even things that aren't good. You don't question them so much. You just go along with it because it's part of the package.
From an instinctual fear of ostracism that goes back 40,000 years, right?
Yeah. I was going to make the point that that's been around for a long, long time, because the need to, how you said about being left as everybody else goes on, that is such a fear of not having your group. I think that happens with a lot of Jan, wouldn't you know about this? Mormonism is like that. JWs are like that. Even some others that aren't necessarily known for that is still something that people are going to feel if they're like, well, if I leave my church, I'm leaving this safety. I'm leaving this collective that is like comforting and protecting and offers things to me that I need, and they will put up with things that you would prefer not to. And I mean, I'm sure there's degrees of things that you're putting up with, And when it gets really bad, then yeah, people they want to leave more. But there's ones where people will stay simply because it's like, okay, well, I'll put up with those things because on the whole, I'm taken care of. It meets needs. And rather than doing the thing where you examine all of the beliefs and then do something about it. As you said, people don't want to do that.
Indeed, leaving the awful known for the terrifying unknown.
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can cope with the broken parts of the shit you've already got, but wow, if you step outside of that, who knows? It might be all razor blades and icebergs, and you haven't gone to sea. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about creating a whole new system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, some people catch the spark and they're gone. That they ignite, and some people they will throw the bucket of ice water on you when they see that spark.
Yeah, and it comes down to this is something that's always interested me, is what is within someone that makes them leave. I don't come from this situation particularly. I mean, specifically because I wasn't raised this way. I didn't have to run away from everything. But I'm always interested in people's stories. Jan, yours, Morg's. There's other Philip, certainly Joel, and many other people that I've spoken to. And Mark, I don't really know yours. I don't know your story. You'll have to tell me sometime. But lots of people in our community have also talked about it, and I'm always very interested in it. What gives someone that strength, that something or other that enables them to leave, whereas other people don't? I think it's partially the extremism, the discomfort, something within them says, I have to do this for myself. My husband, he went through that. I don't think the reasons are all the same. I think everybody has their own story, but somehow,
I think that's go ahead.
No, I was just say somehow the people who leave, gather that strength. They whatever it takes to do that. But and this is another point that I think is worth talking about some other time, is a lot of people just leave to get out of the situation they're in, but they don't go any further. They don't try to find something that is truth, or realize that they want to create a whole new paradigm. They just want to get out of where they were. And I think what we're doing, our purpose is to present the new paradigm that is based on a solid foundation of logic and reason, but then also, as I said in the beginning, allows for all sorts of personal expression. It sort of covers the whole thing. And I just want to look at one comment that's going on over here. Laura, yeah, yes. When you were in the Christian church, they were teaching that you needed Christianity for your own protection from the world, and I'm sure you can relate to that, Jan, because that's something that, of course, you encountered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just going back to Iran just a little bit, since we've talked about that fear and discomfort, we've also talked about what would cause or spark somebody to leave their religious beliefs. I think in a lot of cases, such as Iran, people no longer identify with those extremist beliefs. And so they've lived under that fear and that discomfort for so long that because of that oppression, that now they are trying to rise up with these protests to seek to break free and kind of gain that independence and that freedom of expression and all of those different things that we talked about. I think that is large in part a consequence of that fear and discomfort that everybody's talked about today. They're fed up with that, and so they're seeking something new.
I'm curious how much of that shift is generational. Like, are people 50 plus losing their religion like I gladly would, or is it millennials and younger in Iran? Is it all the young people who are just looking at traditions and going, not so much,
I think it is generational, and also I think that trend is the same way here, because even a lot of my family who are still religious have said to me, well, when you go to church, there's not a lot of young people there. And it seems like even though a lot of the United States is embracing, kind of right-wing extremism, it seems like generationally, religion is becoming less and less popular.
Yeah, I think, and I know that there's one of the charts in here, there were so many good ones, actually covers that. And if I can find it for you, Mark, I'll give it to you later. I think it's right here. How have your religious or non-religious beliefs changed during your lifetime? So for people 50 and over, they went from being religious to non-religious, 41%. And 47% said my beliefs have not changed. So 41% of 50 years and older went from being religious to non-religious. 30 to 49 years old, this is so tiny, 46%.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Philip, I was surprised at how young the population of Iran is. I think I saw somewhere, I've looked at so many statistics, my head is spinning, but I think the average age was about 30 something. They're young. So 20 to 29 years old, 52% said they went from being religious to non-religious. And just to, oh wow, you can't even see. Okay, so for the 50 and older, they went from being non-religious to religious, 5%. From the 30 to 49-year-olds, 7%. And the 20 to 29-year-olds, 5%.
Yeah.
So it's either they went from being religious to non-religious, or they didn't change. And they don't have anything under 20. This is from 20 onward. But they have urban and rural. In the urban area, 49%. And in rural, 42%. A lot of the population has moved into the cities and have become more educated, university educated people. 51% went from being non-religious, religious to non-religious, and non-university educated 45%. So I'll definitely put this in. This was a really, really informative article. With a lot of very good statistics. And I think overall, the world moving, or at least I think most of the world, and I had heard somewhere that Christianity was the only place it was actually growing was in the States, but even that is the article that I quoted from, which I will also, if I haven't, I'll put it up. Definitely saying, they went so far as to say that within a couple decades, there's such a rapid decline. In a couple decades, the Christianity won't be the majority. And this was a long article with lots and lots of tables. So again, very interesting studies and very really good statistics. But overall, I was just looking for what is the growth or decline of Christianity in the States, and it was definitely rapidly reducing. The surprise was Iran. I didn't expect that, and I didn't expect the numbers to be that low. Also, though, you have to remember what I said about the people protesting. They're also protesting economic issues that are going on. I think they've just sort of joined in there. Just unrest in general, unhappiness. But certainly this, the murder of Masa Amani was definitely the thing that made them say, okay, enough is enough. I just really would like to know what's going to happen, like in the long run. I heard some commentators who are very familiar with, with Iranian politics, saying they didn't have terribly much hope that it would change. This is a very, very strict government, so we'll see what happens. The world is definitely watching, and I hope that everybody out there is continuing to share the stories, because that's one of the things, of course, that's really important, because of how much the government is trying to shut down the means for them to get their stories heard.
Do we know that their general condition is still blackout as far as,
I think, as of today,
mobile networks and the internet?
They're very savvy. So tech savvy. The majority of, certainly the young people, and they are very, they're very technologically oriented, and I think that's how they're finding ways to get things out there. Which is good, but it's also, it's also very disturbing knowing that the government is strict and will take action. There's I think the story that I was reading, the most recent one today, said that they don't have a lot to lose. That was I think that was even the headline. They feel like they want to continue protesting because they feel they don't have anything to lose. So when people are in that situation, they're much more likely to continue.
In the chat, Hope is saying Elon didn't send Starlink. That's an interesting point, because he was Iron Man. He was the big savior figure for Ukraine a little bit with technology, right?
Yeah, what's happening with that? Because I just saw a story about the Starlink.
Literally nothing. Elon Musk was like, I'll point my satellite at you if you just build an interceptor. And it's like, well, they're not going to do that. And he's like, well, I did it. And then it's like, well, thanks. And that's it.
Oh, that's okay.
So he didn't do anything as usual.
So you're saying it didn't work out for Ukraine either? It was all just sort of PR and what he could say on Twitter?
Yeah, it just... He never really has actual bright ideas, so.
I thought he had like pods coming down and people were plugged into the internet just like that.
Right.
It would be nice.
Scorpy said some religious groups surround you like friends if you attend, and if you don't attend, they totally shun you. I would rather be shunned 100% than put up with a church I don't agree with. Yeah. I'm there with you, Scorpy, on that. Yeah, Hope. I wasn't paying attention to Elon and his Starlink. I wasn't reading that story.
He was supposed to be helping Ukraine with that, and I don't know if he's even commented on this situation.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to him. Oh, Deborah says, sadly, I was always told how and who to vote for. Oh, that's, yeah. Oh, and Laura said, yeah, me too. Wow. See, if that's what you have to do, if you have to go along with, well, that's what we're doing, so that you do that too. How are you're not even voicing your own opinion? You're just being one of the herd. Oh, whoops! Oh, Laura says, yeah, people will find a way to get their word out. Yeah, it's just scary though. You know what's something else? I was reading so much stuff. You know how they strictly enforce no drinking, but
Right.
apparently a third of the population admitted to drinking occasionally, at least in this survey, when they felt free enough to be able to say give their honest answer.
Did you say who gave that survey? Can you say that again?
I will. Let me find that. I think I still have that one up. I may have to quote in a second.
That's all right. And you said you're going to post all those, right?
Yeah, and I may have put this one in. Okay, so yeah, so this article, it's from a site called The Conversation. Anyway, it's Iran's secular shift. New survey reveals huge changes in religious beliefs. And it was published, this one was published in September of 2020. I thought that this one was later. I think it's the other article that was later. So this is actually 2 years old, this information. I would love to know what it is today. The group is called the Group for Analyzing and Measuring Attitudes in Iran. And I clicked on their site, and they sound very interesting. They're an independent nonprofit research foundation registered in the Netherlands that studies the attitudes of Iranians toward various social and political subjects. And the director or the board, the director, the founder and director is Dr. Ammar Maleki, who is, I believe he's a professor. He's an assistant professor at Tilburg Law School. And I'm sorry, because I'm reading and talking at the same time, which obviously I can't do. I didn't go into his background more than that, but I will put this link up as well as the article. I thought it was interesting that because he's Iranian, pretty sure, and started this because he wants to know how their ideas are intersecting with the world. So hang on, let me come back to you guys. And if I did not put that link in, I will make sure I add that one as well. And I wanted to make. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead.
We're going to be saying sorry. Go ahead to each other like a mirror for a while. No, it just occurred to me that I meant to talk a little bit about top-down control of information and governments, and the way that plays out in the new media environment. And it's really interesting that we've gone toward what all of the idealistic futurists thought would be a great democratization of the media. And, for less than $2,000, it's crazy the production value you can get in your home, things you could never have done 20 years, 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. What you can do with a sound booth at home. You can be a professional voice artist from your home without living in Burbank or New York City. And yet, at the same time, corporations and the degeneration of old laws that regulated media under the pretense of pluralizing things have given us 999 channels of disinformation to every one source that we can trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. Things are going on and I'm a little distracted. Yeah, I'm always trying to figure out, is this a reputable source? Is this something good? Who are these people? And you can't always you can't always get a feel. Sometimes you can get a feel for it and you're like, okay, this is trash. This particular one seemed very above board. I particularly liked it, and I didn't read it to you guys, but I particularly liked the way they spoke about how they did their study and what their criteria was for getting an accurate honest answers. But then I did also look up, like, who is this guy? Who are these people? And it seems legit. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I think that they're decent. That they're
Oh yeah, I'm sure you're sourcing on that is fine. Talking in a much more general way.
Oh, okay.
There are still people doing real science every day. There are still people doing real journalism every day, but you have to discern them from all the noise.
There's a lot of noise. It's daunting in a way, trying to find good information out there. I don't there's a lot that I don't trust, or if I listen to it, if I hear it, you have to filter it through the fact that they're presenting what they want you to know. And even channels that I used to think were good, and I'm sure there's some good people on there who have good intentions, but everything is filtered, so
if you understand the lens, if you understand the interest at play, if you understand who pays the bills, right?
Yeah.
Then you can consume the information and separate it from what they didn't talk about and why they didn't talk about it. And you can get truth value without being confused.
Yeah. I'm sure you're better at it than I am. Although I'm pretty careful now because I don't trust a lot of places. I used to, and then you start to see what's behind it and where you're being led, and then you start to get very disillusioned. Deborah said, right, I was told if I vote otherwise, this is on the voting, I will cancel out their vote. Wow, that was marital control. Deborah, what kind of situation were you in? Yeah, Tyler, you tend to find the truth blended in a dozen sources. I think that is one of the things to do, is to not just rely on one source. Like, look up, look in various places. Samantha, you've seen nothing on social media about this. One of the things, it really it depends on what the algorithms have shown you, and that's another biggie. I've taught my algorithms, at least on TikTok, the kinds of things that I want to see, and I just keep seeing more of it, which is good in a way because I get a lot of really good content. On the other hand, I keep hearing about all the horrible stuff that's on TikTok, which I don't see because I don't look at that kind of stuff. And what happens is you end up in your own little bubble of just, which is in a way, like I said, I get a lot of information about Iran. There's a lot of people, because I like the people who share the stuff, and then I share it. But I also become very ignorant about what a lot of the world is really like. And then when you run into that, because you start to think that people are intelligent, people are interested in important things, and all of a sudden you hit this other area, you wander somewhere else, and it's like you don't have any idea who these people are and why they are talking about such ridiculous things. So it's good and it's bad. It's good because you do get good information, but you also, if you really want to know what's going on out there, you have to look elsewhere too sometimes, just to find out what terrible things are also going on with the way people are thinking. It's a lot of ignorance. If they don't, Joanna said, if they don't pay your bills and you oppose their advice, don't take it. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, you don't have to do what people tell you to do. You're not beholden. You are not beholden to them, even if they do pay your bills. If it's something that you are not in agreement with, that's something to think about. You know. Did you guys? I know we're already over time. Did you guys like this topic? Was this interesting? And for Samantha, who said you haven't been seeing anything on this, it's definitely out there, and you know, you can Google it. I checked to see what was happening today just before here, but normally I'm already finding the most up-to-date stuff out there, just because it thanks more, just because my algorithms know that's what I'm interested in. Oh, you want to see Chompy? Yeah, and I didn't end up coughing, which is hooray, good, because recently it's not been great. Hi, thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Joanna. You guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and wasn't it fantastic having Mark on?
Yes,
I knew
welcome,
and the crowd goes wild.
What you brought was great. Oh, and I heard somebody, or I read somebody said they want that list. If you send me your list, I will put it in the description. Hopefully I don't have a limit on what we can put in there.
Yeah. I can polish that up a little bit and give it to you in a decent format.
Perfect. Yeah. And then you guys can check in the description, anybody who wants Mark's list, because it was really good. So do you guys vote that Mark should come back sometime? Mark said Mark's fantastic. We're hoping to entice him to come back.
And everyone had excellent points. Yes, indeed. Great stuff.
This is a very important topic. This is something that, you know, like I said, I really, and I know the rest of you too, want to see this change in general. And like I said in the very beginning about religion, we are working to shift that paradigm so that everybody is safe from any kind of indoctrination. Everybody is presented with reality and how it operates, and then we can pick our own mythos. We can pick the stories that appeal to us. We can pick the aspects of things. We can make up our own. We can do all of that, and as long as we know where it stands with logic and reason, and I think that could be so exciting and creative, and not dangerous, because we don't have to push it on anyone. Yeah. We don't really have to have other people believing it. What?
I was just gonna say really quick before we go, thank you to Ven for the super chat. That was nice of you.
Thank you, Ven.
Renaissance Fairy said, yes, please, more Mark.
There you have
I've got fans. What can I say?
You have fans.
It's been great.
I think it's great that everybody got to meet you. Finally, I had gotten to speak to you once before, and I think the dynamic is really good. So we will definitely have you back. We'll make it happen, you guys. Right. Thank you for coming. Let me do this real quick for. Nope. There's Chompy. And good night, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you to people who super chatted, and we will see you next week with another. I don't know what our topic is, but we will have another good topic for you guys. So good night, everyone.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.
Good night.